Hey, do you remember BMW's first EV? It was called the i3, and it was a little bit dorky and a little bit weird looking. It wasn't doing a lot to get people excited about EVs, and it didn't do too much to give people that BMW experience they were looking for. This BMW i4 though does a lot to bring the Bavarian brand into the modern age by combining a great EV powertrain with a very familiar BMW look and feel, and the result is fantastic.
Expert car reviews, don't forget to share our channel and subscribe so you can catch some of this and maybe even a little of that.
So before we get started, I did want to let you all know that we have a new podcast. It's called On the Road with AutoTrader, where we make car stuff simple for Canadians. So I'm hosting, your pal Dan is hosting with me, and together we just want to demystify all things car related. So we would love if you subscribed and gave it a listen. You can find it on YouTube and any of your favorite podcast providers. We have a new episode every other week. But now that I have that out of the way, I want to tell you about this car I'm driving right now, which is the 2022 BMW i4 eDrive40, which is a mouthful of a name, but all of that is to mean that this is the entry-level i4 that BMW offers. There's also an i4 M50, which is the performance model. This one, unfortunately, only comes in rear-wheel drive, and if you want all-wheel drive, you'll have to option up to that M model. That M model also has more performance, and it's also more expensive, but it also has less range. So officially, this entry-level i4 is rated to get 485 kilometers of range, and BMW says it's capable of super fast charging, which means you can get about 145 kilometers of range in just 10 minutes if you hook up to a DC fast charger. That means you can get from 10 to 80% in about half an hour, which is really good. But a little bit of a warning is that most DC fast chargers are never as fast as they need to be. So whenever you see range estimates like that and charging time estimates, make sure just to take it with a grain of salt because the times will vary wildly. So this BMW i4 is rated to get 485 kilometers of range, which is really, really good for the segment. But my range calculations this week have been all over the place, and there's a couple different reasons for that. So the first is that the regenerative braking works really, really well in this car, and it is very efficient. The second is that the car gives you range estimates based on your driving behavior. So it's constantly calculating based on the different conditions and how you're driving, how far you can go on your current charge. The only issue is I've never experienced an EV where its range calculations just jump up and down, and it doesn't seem like anything is affecting it. So I've been driving the exact same way the entire time I've had this car, which is very efficiently. I haven't been hammering the throttle or driving super quickly at all times. And so it's really weird to me that when I start a trip, I'll say have 360 kilometers. I'll take a big long trip, let's say I drive 50 kilometers, and then I get home, and then all of a sudden I have like 430 kilometers. So that doesn't make sense to me. And then when I park the car, it'll jump up to 450 kilometers, which I really don't understand because it was just sitting there. So I'm really confused by how this car is calculating that range. And I really like that it changes it based on your driving behavior, but I would appreciate if it was a little bit more consistent because it'll make it easier for planning. So being a BMW, driving dynamics and performance is obviously something that is really important to the brand. And luckily all of that is still present in this electric vehicle. So this car is rated to have 335 horsepower and 317 pound-feet of torque. That means you can get from 0 to 100 kilometers in about 5 seconds. So it is very quick, which is awesome. One of the other hallmarks of BMW is its perfect 50-50 weight distribution from front to rear. And that is still present in this car, which I'm very happy to report. It handles amazingly because all of the weight is down low and it's rear wheel drive. It just chugs through corners so confidently. And I think that is something that a lot of BMW drivers have come to expect. So I'm happy that it's here. So the steering is also quite a highlight. It's nice and heavy at speed. The only thing is that when you're on the highway, it does start to feel a little bit twitchy, so it makes it a little bit harder to keep centered. But that's not a deal breaker, and in these back roads, it performs so nicely. One cool thing about the i4 is all the neat sounds it makes. So it is an electric car, so it runs completely silently. So BMW has partnered up with Hans Zimmer, who is a famous award-winning musical composer for all your favorite movies. I'm sure you've heard his work before. So they've engineered some really interesting sounds here. It sounds like spaceships sometimes, it sounds like a video game at other times. All really cool stuff. So before I picked up this i4, I kind of expected it to be a lot like the BMW iX, which Dan reviewed just not too long ago. So if you haven't watched that video, go check it out. So that iX is something so different from anything BMW has ever done before. Stylistically, it's very, very unique. Inside, it was really fancy. It had all of these like crystal glass switch gear and this like really cool touch panel wood. It was very futuristic and very different from anything BMW has ever done before. And so when I picked up the i4 and I got in it, I was kind of underwhelmed because it didn't have any of that fancy stuff. But I actually really like what's going on here because I feel like this i4 is for a BMW driver who wants an EV but doesn't want to relearn how to use the car. So if you've ever driven a BMW before, all of this will feel very familiar to you. All of the user controls, it feels and operates and pretty much drives like any BMW you're already used to. And I think that's actually really cool because that also helps keep the cost of this car down. And another thing that helps keep that cost low is that the i4 shares a platform with the 4 Series, which is good and bad for a couple of reasons. So it's good because of the cost savings, and it's not so good because it means that the designers weren't able to be as creative with the interior packaging or the design. So one thing to note is that it does not have a frunk. I don't even know how to open the hood. For some reason, they make it very difficult to do. And the other downside is that they still have this big transmission tunnel running through the center of the car, and there's no real transmission, so it doesn't really make sense that it's there. But those are not big issues, and in general, I really like what's going on here. And something else about the regen braking. At first, when I picked up this car, I thought it didn't allow me to do one-pedal driving, and I really like one-pedal driving for EVs because it makes it so much more fun and so much more efficient. But then I realized all you have to do is shove the gear selector into B mode, and B mode just enables maximum regen and one-pedal driving, which you should always be activating in your EV. So like I said, in here, very familiar BMW stuff. One of the highlights is this giant curved screen. Everyone that I've had in the car says it's really impressive, and I agree with them. So first of all, it is actually 2 different screens, but it's under a single panel, which makes it look like one big screen, which is very cool. The other thing I really love is that when you use Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, which is wireless by the way, which is great, it uses the full screen, which is very rare to see for some reason. Usually they have some weird dead zones, but BMW has made really great use of all of the screen real estate. And if you didn't want to use the touchscreen, it also is controllable with this rotary knob, which is more helpful to use when you're on the go because it's easier to control than using the touchscreen while you're driving. The other thing I love is how well BMW has integrated the smartphone experience into the car. So when you're using navigation, for example, on Google Maps, you can see all of the turn-by-turn directions and lane suggestions in your head-up display, which is really cool. Normally, those functions only work if you use the native navigation system. So the fact that they've opened it up and integrated it really well is so helpful. One thing I need to mention, because I know it's Canada and this is really important, the i4 comes standard with a heat pump, which is a way more efficient way to warm up the cabin in the winter, and it's good because it doesn't have as much of an impact on the range and battery as other EVs without a heat pump. The i4 is also internet enabled, which means you can get over-the-air updates, and it makes it really easy to search for stuff in the navigation system like charging systems, or if you wanted a Starbucks, you could just tell it that. It works a lot like you're used to using Google, which makes it really, really easy. Another thing I love is the ambient lighting, and I can't show you now because it's daytime, but beyond just looking cool and futuristic, it also tells you information. So if you have an incoming call, for example, the light will pulse at you, or if your door is accidentally still open while you're driving, it will flash at you to warn you. So I think that's really cool that it goes beyond just being aesthetic and that it's actually useful. One other cool thing it does, and I know a lot of Teslas already do this, is that you never actually need to use the key fob to lock or unlock the door. As you approach the car, it unlocks automatically, and as you walk away, it locks the doors for you. It just makes it a lot more convenient, and I wish more cars did that. Say what you will about this massive grille. I know it's really controversial. Dan makes fun of it all the time because it looks like buck teeth, but everything you see here helps increase the BMW i4's aerodynamics, which will help maximize your range. The other cool thing that I really wanted to show you, I can't show you right now because it's daylight, so Will's gonna throw up a shot of these really cool puddle lights from my parking garage. I think it makes the i4 look a lot like a spaceship. But some people told me that they think this BMW looks too normal and they really want an EV that looks more futuristic. I want to know what you think. Would you rather drive an EV that looks kind of normal like this? Or would you want one that looks like a hyper-futuristic spaceship? Let me know in the comments. The other thing I wanted to mention is that it looks like a sedan, but it's actually a liftback, which is great for practicality. So in the back, there's about 470 liters of space, which expands to about 1,300 liters with the seats folded flat. So let's talk pricing. This BMW i4 starts at around 55 grand, which I thought was pretty good. I actually expected it to be way higher than that. So the fact that it starts that low is fantastic. The one I'm driving has a $13,000 options package, which I think is pretty necessary to the whole experience. It gives you stuff like head-up display, ambient lighting, surround view monitor, all that good stuff. So I do recommend getting it. This one also has a $3,000 M package, which I'm okay with skipping because it's mostly aesthetic stuff, so I would skip it just to save money. And in total, it ends up being around $72,000 as tested, which I actually think is a pretty good deal considering all the stuff you get. To recap, I love the BMW i4's generous range, decent price, and very typical BMW experience. But I'm not a huge fan of all the options that should be standard or the fact that it doesn't have a frunk. But that's about it. It's pretty good. The BMW i4 has so much going for it, and it offers pretty much everything you'd expect in a luxury compact sports sedan. It has a great powertrain, tons of range, very impressive tech, and it's not even that crazy expensive. So if you're looking for a luxury EV that kind of looks and feels like a regular car to interact with, the i4 is a great pick.